Well, MAGA Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert just cannot escape her past. One particular moment from her past. Oh, you know what I'm referring to. And it was very funny to see she did a radio interview, and to introduce her, music from Beetlejuice was played. We'll get to her reaction. I'll play this moment for you. But then I want to talk about how, while it's definitely notable to reference, ask her about, we will look at, again, Kyle Clark confronting her over this. But then I want to walk through some other moments with Lauren Boebert, or about Lauren Boebert, to underline the point that I think sometimes we see with these MAGA figures. They do just a long list of horrible things, but then it's only a few often sort of salacious things that become what they're known for, and sort of strange that we can't get the American public to care about these other often more consequential horrible things about them and things that have been said by them. A similar effect happens with Trump, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But first, here is the reporting from Newsweek, and then I'll play it for you. Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert was greeted with tunes from the musical Beetlejuice when she sat down for an interview Friday with Denver radio station KOA. And obviously, if somehow you missed this, Lauren Boebert went to see Beetlejuice at a theater in Colorado and was a little bit too handsy with her partner. And then also, after being requested to stop, she continued to vape and make a bunch of noise. She said she wasn't vaping. Then we got the video footage. She was, when that's against the rules. And she was asked to leave. She flipped off the workers, said, "Do you know who I am?" Just a bunch of really low character stuff. And Boebert, a Republican who currently represents Colorado's 3rd congressional district, joined host Ross Kaminsky to talk about her run for the state's 4th congressional district this fall. Before the two began their conversation, the station played a segment of the Beetlejuice, the musical film, scored by composer Danny Elfman, a reference to Boebert's scandal last fall, where she was asked to leave a performance of the musical for causing a disturbance. And obviously, for copyright reasons, I'm not going to play the actual music introduction, but after the music is played, here was her being brought on the show, and then eventually going, "I noticed the Beetlejuice music was being played."
To create this ad, to learn more about AI in the audio industry, download the white paper from audiostack.ai.
Lauren Boebert, Congresswoman representing Colorado's 3rd congressional district, running for the Republican nomination in the 4th congressional district, joins me in studio. And this is not the most important thing, but I will just say the last couple of times I've seen you, you must have been wearing taller shoes.
Yes.
Because you're Dana Perino size, which I did not quite realize.
Yes.
So
I'm 5'0".
Move a little closer to the mic.
Okay, I am 5'0", and I typically am in heels. In my own personal opinion, when I wear flats, that means I've given up on life.
We've been trying to think of new ways every day to ask you to subscribe. So today I'm going to show you the studio from our perspective. You got the lights there, the cameras, all the good things. The live subscribe ticker you can see there going up. Every single day, so many of you have been subscribing. It's truly, and I know this is sort of a cringy thing to say, oh, it's so humbling. Is it really? Yes. Thank you. We've been shocked and humbled every day by how many of you are choosing to subscribe. It's incredible. Thank you so much. If you haven't already, click that subscribe button.
I am in flats tonight, but I think it's kind of cute. So just for the record, I've not given up.
Okay. All right. Very good. We got lots of stuff to talk about. Let's start
How about the intro music? Are you kidding me?
What?
Oh my goodness.
That's Producer Dragon. That's Producer Dragon. Was that Beetlejuice music?
Sure was.
Of course it was.
Of course it was.
It's
all right.
showtime. Let's go.
I'm not. Yeah. Right. I'm not going there. I'll let other people ask those questions.
I'm not going there. We don't want to talk about that again, Lauren. And it is interesting how this is plaguing her campaign. She just cannot get past the Beetlejuice incident. And before going on to the things that I wish people would also focus on, in addition to that, here's a reminder of Kyle Clark, the radio host, said that other people can ask about that incident. Well, Kyle Clark did very nicely recently at the debate we covered.
It was about the softest reference that he could have made, but do you want to talk about the theater thing?
Sure. So, Kyle, I certainly have owned up to my night out in Denver. And, you know, I've gone on that public apology tour, and I'm grateful for the mercy and grace that has been shown. But I'm not going to continue to live life in shame and be beat up by this. And, you know,
by the way, that phrase is hilarious for her to use. I'm not going to live life in shame. Isn't it Pride Month? I'm going to be proud that I treated staff horribly after groping my partner. I'm not going to be ashamed of myself for living my truth, which is that I'm rude to people.
I would like to go back to my legislative record for just a second.
We're not going to do that. You had plenty of time to answer the question. You chose not to. That's fine. I just want to make sure.
I'll have more time.
And you have apologized for the theater incident.
I certainly have.
And I just want to make sure. Did you apologize for the behavior that went on with you and your date, or the vaping,
Kyle,
or did you apologize, or pardon me, or did you apologize for lying to voters about what you did that night and the disrespect that you showed to service workers that night? What specifically were you apologizing for?
I don't believe there was disrespect. There were things that were absolutely taken out of context.
There's video of your interactions with service workers. I'm asking,
right,
are you apologizing for the lying to voters,
that I flipped someone off and I did not. So I mean, I think it's been very mischaracterized. I'm apologizing for you, Kyle Clark, getting footage and releasing that. And people seeing this in a very private moment.
Certainly. It was very important to figure out whether you were telling the truth.
Such a private moment in a theater with thousands of people. You exposed me in a time of privacy in my own home, I mean at a public theater. And so there's that. Again, it is a phenomenon that this is plaguing her campaign so much that it keeps coming up. But one of the things we see with MAGA figures like Trump, like former Congressman Madison Cawthorn and others, including Lauren Boebert, is the tendency for the public to focus on a story like this one, or as we'll get back to, Madison Cawthorn talking about cocaine-fueled orgies and him getting funky with his cousin. And that became what sort of took his campaign down, not all the absolutely horrific things he said and did, and his support of such anti-democratic behavior on the part of Trump and all that, right? And Lauren Boebert, too. Do you remember this moment that people seem to have forgotten about?
Fun story for you. So,
let's hear it.
So, the other night on the House floor was not my first Jihad Squad moment. So, I was getting into an elevator with one of my staffers. And he and we're leaving the Capitol, we're going back to my office, and we get in the elevator, and I see a Capitol police officer running hurriedly to the elevator. I see fret all over his face, and he's reaching, and I'm like, what? The door's shutting, like, I can't open it. Like, what's happening? I look to my left, and there she is, Ilhan Omar. Whoops. And I said, well, she doesn't have a backpack. We should be fine.
So she's referring to members of Congress as the Jihad Squad, and then is specifically saying that Ilhan Omar, just because she's Muslim, she's saying that she was afraid that something was going to happen. But, at least she didn't have a backpack on. The joke goes, because she may have been a suicide bomber. That's the joke. So we should also focus on this stuff. Or her just completely wanted to throw separation of church and state into the garbage.
The reason we had so many overreaching regulations in our nation is because the church complied. The church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. That is not how our founding fathers intended it. And I'm tired of this separation of church and state junk that's not in the Constitution. It was in a stinking letter, and it means nothing like what they say it does.
It is actually constitutionally demanded by the First Amendment, Lauren. And, that's crazy. I'm tired of this separation of church and state junk, as if she's just dropping the mic while she's saying something I assume that is unpopular in the country. We want people to be able to practice the religion that they'd like to, or practice no religion at all. We celebrate that, and one of the ways you protect that is by separation of church and state. And then I want to show you. So then, of course, Lauren Boebert also tried to block the peaceful transfer of power. She also obstructed to the certification of the legitimate election of President Joe Biden. But I want to compare this to Madison Cawthorn, who also had this long track record of saying absolutely horrible things and doing horrible things, but it was only the salacious stuff that took him down.
This is something that I will probably get me in trouble to say, but it's a...
Excellent. That probably means if it's not true, it's directionally right.
In this country, I think we were talking about these 300, 400 rifle deaths every single year. All of them are a tragedy. Everything's a tragedy, and I never want to mitigate the human suffering, but I will tell you, I think it is the duty of a statesman to be willing to suffer tragedy to prevent something so much worse.
Sure.
And
Right, so that was him in the wake of one mass shooting after another, saying, oh, you may just have to accept that, America, even though, of course, we have gun violence like no other developed country has because of our whacked situation with gun laws and not just implementing common sense gun regulations as so many other countries and certain states in this country have figured out how to do. It wasn't that. It wasn't times where he was obviously promoting violence. It wasn't his lies about the 2020 election. Instead, it was stuff like this that took him down.
You're with House
about
of
to get
Cards.
serious. Yes, I am.
With Kevin Spacey, and I forget who else was in it. But anyway,
Really well done show.
Very well done show.
Very well done show.
But it was so dirty, and it was about this congressman who was...
By the way, priceless introduction of this question. House of Cards, so dirty, just so dirty, but I couldn't stop watching it.
Kevin Spacey, who was, I think it was minority or majority whip.
Yep.
What was it? Yeah. And so anyway, very, very powerful guy. And it was just kind of like his secret life of all this corruption and power and money and perversion. And it was just dirty.
I felt dirty watching. I was a bad boy.
Much, in your opinion, because you've been behind the veil, is this fictitious show? Or is this more closer to like a documentary? Is it that bad?
So I heard a former president that we had in the 90s was asked the question about this. And he gave an answer that I thought was so true. And he said, the only thing that's not accurate in that show is that you could never get a piece of legislation about education passed that quickly.
And everything else is good?
Aside from that, I mean, the sexual perversion that goes on in Washington, I mean, being kind of a young guy in Washington, where the average age is probably 60 or 70, and I look at all these people, a lot of them that I've looked up to through my life, I've always paid attention to politics, guys that, then all of a sudden you get invited to, like, well, hey, we're going to have kind of a sexual get-together at one of our homes. You should come. And I'm like, what did you just ask me to come to? Yeah. And then you realize they're asking you to come to an orgy. Yeah. Or the fact that there's some of the people that are leading on the movement to try and remove addiction in our country, and then you watch them do a key bump of cocaine right in front of you, and it's like, wow, this is wild.
Yeah, wild indeed, and that was what caused Kevin McCarthy to go to war with Madison Cawthorn, or I should say, the Republican establishment. And again, it's sort of like, if we can get them out of Congress, let's do it. And if that means making sure people think every single day about Lauren Boebert's behavior at Beetlejuice, fine. If that means focusing on the Republican cocaine-fueled orgies, fine. Let's do it. Let's get these dangerous MAGA figures out of office. But it's sad to me that we can't also focus on other things. Now, in the case of Boebert, there is a more important point to her behavior, which is the contradiction, right? The party family values, accusing everyone of being groomers and then acting that way in public, but then also the way she treated staff members, her lack of respect for them. Do you know who I am? Right. So there is character, insight into her character that we learn from that event, unlike his story there. That is just funky stuff. But it seems that a lot of people have a hard time focusing on anything else. And there's a lot that we could be talking about. Most significantly being that these individuals participated in, encouraged, and helped to stoke the lies that caused January 6th, that were being used to justify Trump trying to block the peaceful transfer of power, ending our democratic process. That's what everyone needs to focus on. But again, sometimes that conversation, a more nuanced conversation, isn't as broadly compelling as a story like the Beetlejuice thing, or as Madison Cawthorn. How do I describe that thing with his cousin? I don't know. Humpty Dumpty. And then things like this too. Oh, there's no audio, so we'll just watch together. But for the podcast listeners, he's punching a tree very avidly. There's honestly an impressiveness to punching what is obviously a heavily deteriorated, weak tree, and he's still not doing very good. Oh, goodness. I don't know why he post that. We don't know. But, again, we'll focus on what we have to defeat these individuals. But my message to America is there's also some deep, dangerous characteristics to these MAGA figures beyond the caricatures, the cartoonish nature of who they are. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments, and you can get access to the daily bonus show by clicking that join button below.